Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. So today we are going to complete the 15th chapter. Very profound set of teachings again today. And before we proceed, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God, and I'll also play the Guru mantra. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshuram Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः।
Hare Krishna. So, as I was mentioning, today we are going to conclude the 15th chapter, and we are going to cover slokas 15.16 to 15.20. So, I think today again, Sandeep ji has gracefully volunteered to read the Sanskrit slokas. Sandeep ji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षराक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमः पुरुषस्त्वन्यः परमात्मेत्युदाहृतः यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य बिभर्तव्यय ईश्वरः यस्मात् क्षरमतीतोऽयम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः आस्थितोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतिथः पुरुषोत्तमः यो मामेवमसम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमम् स सर्वविद् भजति माम् सर्वभावेन भारत इति गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम् इदमुक्तं मया नघ एतद्बुद्ध्वा बुद्धिमान् स्यात् कृतकृत्यस्य भारत ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे पुरुषोत्तमयोगो नाम पञ्चदशोऽध्यायः। हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Beautiful. I just want you all to also pay attention on how the chapter ends, because I'm very happy that Sandeep ji covered that part also when he recited it. So it's even that the way the chapter concludes, even that has a lot of teaching for us, because it starts with Om Tat Sat, which basically is the essence of all the teachings, right? Om Tat Sat is that, is the truth, absolute truth. And then it says, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. This is from the Bhagavad Gita, Upanishadsu, which is considered as an Upanishad. And then it says Brahma Vidyayam, which is Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of that supreme consciousness. And then it says Yoga Shastre. Now here is where the importance is. Like it says Brahma Vidyayam also, and it says Yoga Shastre also. Because if you see, Upanishads and Brahma Vidya, they are very theoretical. That is why, like the Upanishad is full of theory about the Brahman. So for example, statements like, Aham Brahmasmi, that's a theory. Correct? But the same Upanishads also say that you cannot theorize God. The same Upanishads also say that God has to be experienced. So how do you experience? That is Yoga Shastra. No, that is why every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called as some yoga. Because Shri Krishna is telling us that we are supposed to practice. And we are supposed to, that is the yoga for us. So with this knowledge, when you practice as yoga, then you get Brahma Vidya. See, that is the whole idea. That's why that concluding part also is very, very important. Thank you so much once again. So who is reading the translations today?
Me, the Guruji, Tanuja.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Me? 15.16. There are two types of beings in this world, the perishable, that is kshara, and the imperishable, that is akshara. All created beings are perishable, while their unchanging soul, that is kutastha, is called imperishable. 15.17. But distinct is the Supreme Person, who is spoken of as the Supreme Soul, the indestructible Lord, who pervades and sustains the three worlds. 15.18. Because I am beyond the perishable and even superior to the imperishable, I am celebrated in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person, Purushottama Maha. 15.19. Those who are free from delusion know me as a Supreme Person, is all-knowing, and they worship me with their entire being, O descendant of Bharata. 15.20. Thus I have revealed this most confidential part of Vedic scriptures, O sinless one. Understanding this, a person becomes wise and attains fulfillment of all duties, O descendant of Bharata. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So this is the final portion of the 15th chapter. And again, as we discussed earlier, it contains really profound teachings because they are revealing the deepest truths about the nature of God, the universe, and so on and so forth. And they address some very, very key questions. Questions like, who are we? What is the nature of God? How does the universe function? What is our role within it? These are all such deep, key questions. And that is pretty much the topic of the 15th chapter, and particularly these slokas. And as you can see the slokas, you see how Krishna has spoken those slokas and the meanings. They all look very concise. Krishna has used only as many words as necessary. He has not used very flowery language, or so it seems very concise, but at the same time very profound. And that is why it requires careful contemplation. One of the most profound teachings in Vedanta is that intellect is important, but you cannot, depend on the intellect alone to lead you to spiritual realization. See, this lesson is again here. That's why I went through the meaning of the last concluding part of the chapter. As we were saying, it is not just Upanishad, it is also Yoga Shastra. Because intellect alone cannot take us to realization. It can only point the direction. Very, very important, because Krishna himself is reminding us, even here, that the highest truth, they transcend all reason and they have to be experienced. For example, things like we said, Krishna is beyond dvesha, kala, vastu. So how can you reason? How can you reason that one person can be here also, one person can be there also? See, if you use your mental faculty, it will depend on only what you know so far. And based on what you know so far, that seems kind of something you just cannot comprehend, you see? But then that is the fact. And if you can realize Brahman, even that aspect of Brahman you will realize. That is the whole idea. Now, for example, you take the story of Ravana. It's a very popular example. We keep talking about him many times, because Ravana was a brilliant scholar. He had mastery over the Vedas. But still, he was consumed by pride, by arrogance. How is it possible? If you are so brilliant, so much so that you know entire Vedas, then how come you are still a victim of pride and arrogance? How come when the Lord is standing in front of him, he still cannot comprehend that is the Lord? Even when his own brother tells him that Ravana, that is Lord Rama, that is the Lord. It doesn't make sense to him. You see the problem with intellect, you know. So, I mean, knowing the Vedas requires a different level of intellect, extreme intellect. But in spite of that, it cannot help us achieve realization in itself. What is required along with it? Humility, self-purification, and all the yogas that Shri Krishna has been teaching throughout the Bhagavad Gita. All the yogas, karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, practicing samatvam and all the virtues, amanitvam, adambitvam, they're all, when you practice them, they're all yogas. And that is how you purify. And that is how you then become eligible for realization. That is a very, very important message. See, forget God. I mean, God is still a very, very complex, incomprehensible thing. Take something very simple that we all, face in everyday life. Something simple like love. Now, you can read 100 books on love. It will tell you all 100 million different aspects of love, but how is it helpful? What is important is you have to feel that love, right? Otherwise, all that theory of what love is, what are you going to do with it? Just like that, God is absolute love. And so what are we trying to again here explain is, intellect has a purpose, but we shouldn't get too attached to the intellect. And that shouldn't become a cause of our pride, because instead of helping us, at one point, intellect starts hindering us. It starts hindering our progress. That is why intellect, use it until you realize or until you understand that what is required is humility and surrender, and then go do it. Humility and surrender. And then the real learning starts. Like even the Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad says this very beautifully. It says in 3.2.3 that the self cannot be realized through lectures or through intellectual brilliance, nor through extensive study of the scriptures. It is attained only by one whom the Atman chooses. And to that person, the Atman reveals his true form. So this is a different way of saying that ultimately you need the Lord's grace to get realization. And where will the grace come from? Not because of what you have done, but because of how you present yourself. Are you open? Are you humble? So for all students of Vedanta, one of the teaching, this is a reminder that we need to balance. We need to balance our scriptural study with actual practice. Practice of what? Practice of things like selfless service, meditation, bhakti. All of these things are very important. And amanitvam, adambitvam, and then approaching a teacher, going with pranipatena, pariprasnena, sevaya, all of that Krishna has given the recipe. But all of those things have to be practiced. So when Krishna says humility, we don't start, writing an essay on what is humility. When Krishna says humility, we start becoming humble. That is a practice. Just like that, when Krishna says practice seva, you don't just go and write a theory essay on what all constitutes seva, okay? Even if you know 2 or 3 things about seva, start doing it. Start serving. So that is the whole idea here. So these are all part of the divine knowledge Krishna is imparting. Let's all be open to it. Let's pay attention and let's actually take it seriously. And then Krishna explains that all the energy in the universe, it is manifesting from him. Or he is the source of all energy in the universe. But there is a key aspect that he is saying that we should pay attention to. Krishna says, although I am the source of all energy, in fact, I am providing energy to everything and everybody, my energy does not get diminished. That's a very, very key differentiator, because in the material world, you think of any source of energy. For example, think of like a battery. A battery can provide energy to whatever you connect it to, like a bulb or a, your speaker or whatever. But then the battery's energy depletes. It can only provide so much energy, and then eventually you have to recharge that battery, correct? But Krishna never needs recharging. You know, he is that infinite source of energy. See, there is this, even if you think that maybe Krishna may also need recharging, the question to ask is, who is going to recharge him? Because that would imply that there is another, which is contrary to the whole definition of the Supreme, where we says, Om Tat Sat, there is only one absolute. So if there is one absolute, there is no duja, then there is nobody to recharge. So that is why then you can intellectually, kind of convince yourself that that is why Krishna is saying that I am the source of energy, but my energy never diminishes. That makes sense, correct? And see, we are not repeating the verses from the Bhagavad Gita, but he has kind of taught something similar throughout the Gita. We can do a combined revision sometime later. But basically, Krishna is emphasizing that every manifestation of power, it could be like a cosmic phenomena, it could be like the sun, or something as magnificent as the sun, or something as small as a seed sprouting. They all need some kind of energy, and all of that is coming only from that supreme reality, from Krishna. So what is the lesson? How is it going to help us, this particular lesson? Because once we identify Krishna as the source of everything, source of all energy, then anything that we see around us, we will start understanding that it is an expression of His divine will only. Because no matter what is happening, it requires energy. And Krishna says that energy comes from me. So you see the planets spinning around, you see the sun giving warmth, you see the wind blowing, so many things going on, even the birds flapping their wings. Then we will, if we can start seeing all of that as an expression of the divine will, because the energy is coming from that divine only, then that keeps us more in the bhava of, realization, in the bhava of, ananya chintan. And that is what we need eventually. And even in the Upanishads, I think they have spoken about the same thing. They talk about the greatness of God, the all-pervading nature of God and God's energy. So, for example, in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, if you go to 6.18, it will say, Yo Brahmanam Vidadati Purvam Yo Vai Vedanscha Prahinoti Tasmai Amha Devam Atma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshairva Taranam Maham Prapadya. It says, He who created Brahma in the beginning and delivered the Vedas to him, that supreme being who illuminates the intellect and grants liberation, to him I surrender, desiring freedom from bondage. See, all of these thoughts should come to us when we again go back and revise the older chapters where we discuss things like, there are three types of Vishnu. We said Karanodakshi Vishnu, Garbhodakshi Vishnu, Kshirodakshi Vishnu, where we said Kshirodakshi means, he is in every atom. The same thing Krishna is now saying in a different language. He's using a different perspective, and he's saying everything, I pervade everything, and I'm the source of all energy, and energy exists everywhere. There is energy even within an atom, because in atoms we have electrons moving around, and how can anything move without energy? So Krishna is giving this other perspective to make us completely internalize this aspect of the omnipresence of Krishna. See, modern science does not think this way. Modern science thinks it can explain the, cause and effect of everything. And science believes, everything has a cause. Everything that has a cause will also have an effect, so on and so forth. But if you ask science about the universe, it will say, oh, it just happened because of a random Big Bang. That is the only explanation science is able to give. There it is not able to talk intelligently about cause and effect. Why? Because modern science tries to approach everything using just intellect. And as Krishna himself has said, you cannot perceive the divine using just intellect. Intellect is kind of a tool, but it is not sufficient in itself. No, for example, modern science, it acknowledges that moon is essential for life on Earth. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of this. Moon is not just a romantic symbol. Moon has a very, very important role to play. Because that is, the Earth itself is rotating at an angle. And that angle is what is responsible for all the seasons. When you can read all of this is all documented. So if the Earth did not tilt the way it is tilting today, you would not have seasons. There will only be one season. And the moon is making sure that the Earth maintains the tilt. In other words, the moon is kind of controlling the tilt of the Earth using its own gravitational force. And if the moon was just even 5% closer than what it is to the Earth, every day there will be tsunamis. There will be no life. And if the moon was like just 5% further away, then it will no longer be able to control the tilt of the Earth, and the Earth will start wobbling and things will be so unstable. You see how precise it is and how important it is. But science explanation stops here. This is how much science can explain. They talk about gravity, they talk about angle, they talk about distance. But then more than 5,000 years ago, Krishna, he's talking more finer aspects of it. He says that moonlight provides nourishment. And he says without the moon, there cannot be any vegetation on Earth. There can be no life on Earth without moon. Not just because it is holding the Earth's axis, but because it actually provides that nourishment that everybody needs. It's so important. Like even in the Vedas, it is written that Somo Rajadi Tishtati. So there they are talking about Soma, the king. So this is what Krishna also says. Krishna says that the moon provides that nourishment which is called as Soma. Somaras, we call it. But see the depth of knowledge that we had thousands of years before science had any way of measuring any of these things. That is why we say that Vedas were not written by humans. Vedas were just given because, thousands of years ago, how can anybody even know that the moon is so important for life on Earth? You see the beauty, see the profoundness. And then there is this key teaching which is coming in this set of slokas. That is the distinction between kshara and akshara. Kshara means that which is perishable, and akshara means that which is imperishable. And kshara is everything that is in the material realm. Doesn't matter. It can be the tiniest ant or it can be the mightiest creature. It is all perishable. So anything that has a material body is perishable. That is a formula. If anything has a body, it will perish. In contrast, akshara talks about everything on the spiritual plane, where they are beyond destruction, and they are, so in some of the like Puranas and all, when they say, somebody is in Vaikuntha, that is precisely what they mean. It means they are in a spiritual realm where everything is akshara. There is no destruction. There is no getting into the cycle of birth and death. And that is what Krishna is talking about here. And Krishna is saying that if we are sincere with our efforts of purifying the mind, heart, then it will help us transition from kshara to akshara. So first we have to acknowledge that we are all kshara. Do we agree that we are kshara, or maybe we have some immortals in this class? Do we have, or does everybody think we are all kshara, or do we have somebody who thinks they are akshara? Okay, that is the first step, because if you think you are akshara, then there is nothing to teach, So the first thing is we are all kshara. Are we internalizing that? When we make our life choices, when we make our prioritization calls, are we making it consciously being aware of us being perishable? We don't. Many times the way we prioritize things or the decisions we take, they are as if we are going to live forever. That has to change. That perspective has to come, And then we have to say, this is what Krishna said, Antakale can come anytime. So we are all kshara, And Krishna is saying, if you follow my teachings, sincerely and practice it consistently, then you can transition from kshara to akshara. And I am above all of this. He says, I am beyond even akshara. So I am, of course, not kshara. I am also above the akshara also. And that is why I am called as Purushottama, the Uttama Purusha. That basically means an entity that is beyond kshara and akshara. So he says, Yasmat ksharam atito, ham aksharad api chotamaha. I am transcendental to the kshara and akshara. Atosmi loke vede cha pratita purushottamaha. Thus I am celebrated in the Vedas as Purushottama. And people whose minds are not controlled by delusions, people who can discriminate between the physical body and the immortal soul, they are the ones who have realized that I am Purushottama. And such a person or such people can only claim to have complete knowledge. Nobody else can claim to have complete knowledge. They have some knowledge, some theoretical knowledge. You can say, I know all the Upanishads. That is still a tiny bit of knowledge only. So Krishna is saying the real true knowledge is when you absolutely realize and understand that I am Purushottama. There is kshara, there is akshara, and I am beyond that. You have to understand all three. Very, very important. And how do we have this knowledge? Again, surrender. That means humility, right? And practice Kevala Bhakti. And practice selfless actions and Ananya Chintan. See, all of these are connected and you can go back and forth now as many times as you want and they will all lead you to the same truth. They will all take you on the same path in many different ways. So if you see now you can, this is the context that you need to appreciate that world famous popular Upanishad sloka, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma, Tajjalaniti Shanta Upasita. Fashionably people say Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma, but so this context, gives it more prominence, it gives it more meaning, because there it says, all this is indeed Brahman. From that all beings arise. By that they are sustained, and into that they merge. So meditate upon this in tranquility, calmness. And then the next verse of the Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad 3.14.1 and 2, the next one is more, beautiful. It says, Manomayah prana shariro barupah satya samkalpa akashatma sarva karma sarva kamah sarva gandha sarva rasah sarvamidam abhyatto Vakyanadharah. So let us see what it says. It's very profound. It's a very beautiful sloka. So it says, made of mental and breath bodies. Maybe what I will do, I will just dissect this sloka for you. So there it is revealing that Brahman is Manomayah. Manomayah is subtle, subtly connected to the mind. The mind itself is subtle and it is made of that subtleness, yet beyond mere thoughts. Consisting of the mind, but beyond mere thoughts. And then Bharupaha, which is radiant, but by its own nature. In other words, sometimes when we say something is shining, like a diamond glitters, but for it to glitter, it needs light, and that light comes from somewhere else. Whereas here, when we say Bharupaha, it is radiance of its own. And then furthermore, Brahman is Satya Sankalpa, one who is always true and perfectly fulfilled. That talks about the creative power of the Brahman, where every intention of Brahman manifests without any obstruction. And then the phrase Akashatma, that likens Brahman to space itself, which is vast and boundless and all pervading. As you know, like space pervades everything. There is space everywhere. There is space in everything. So that is the definition of all pervading. And then going deeper, Brahman is called as Sarva Karma, which is the doer of all actions, and Sarva Kamaha, the one who possesses all desires, and also one who fulfills all desires. So many beautiful words. So these words, they're all reminding that every single moment and aspiration in the cosmos, they're arising from this Brahman, and ultimately they go back to that reality. By saying that, for example, words like Sarva Gandaha and Sarva Rasaha, it's like Brahman holds the essence of all fragrance, all flavors. Very poetic language, but it is trying to explain how nothing is separate from Brahman, and on how every quality, every sensation, every experience exists within that Brahman. And then finally the verse concludes that Brahman is Sarvam Idam Abhyataha, means it encompasses all that is, and is Avakyanadara, which is beyond the power of speech. Avakya, which is beyond, Vakya is speech. So it is beyond the power of speech or sound to describe fully. How many words the Upanishads require to even give us an idea of what they are talking about? That is why Krishna says, the intellect can only give you the pointers, but there is no way the intellect can completely take you to realization. That has to happen from within, Because the last point is reminding us that sacred texts and teachings, they can guide us. They can guide us towards the understanding of Brahman. But the actual ultimate realization that is beyond words, it cannot be described, it cannot be explained, it can only be realized. See, in chapter 7, if you remember, Krishna had himself said that Mattaha parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjayah Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. He said that there is nothing higher than me, O Arjuna. Everything in the universe is strung on me like pearls on a string. Now you remember that statement Krishna had made. So now you get the context here. So he wants us to now realize that, for example, when Krishna says, I'm, above everything and the whole universe is strung on me like a thread of pearls, that was one way of looking at it. And here Krishna is saying, I am that one who provides energy to everything. So they all are talking about the same aspect of all pervasiveness in different angles, different ways. And also in the Bhagavad Purana, if you look at 1.3.28, there Krishna is specifically called out as Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. What that basically means is, all the other incarnations, they are, either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Swayam. All the other incarnations, they can appear on planets, whenever there is a disturbance and all of that, but the Lord will always incarnate to protect the devotees. He is Bhagavan Swayam. So in that concept, or in that sense, Purushottama is that highest personality of God, who is Bhagavan Swayam, who is the origin of all avatars, shelter of all existence. See, even I am struggling for words. Even I am trying to, this is one of those instances where even I am not able to find words to explain this because that is the nature. Krishna can use one word and say Purushottama, but we can spend hours trying to theorize it and still we will not even have gone close to that. That's the whole idea. But, what is the purpose of this by describing Bhagavan as Purushottama and so awesome and so beyond words and all of that is so that we learn to look beyond, the surface appearances, the material aspect of everything and everybody, and learn to connect with that boundless reality which is at the core of our own being. You don't have to go searching for that reality. That reality is within us, that boundless aspect. Whatever knowledge we have so far gained from the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter should give us the conviction to use that knowledge and practice Kevala Bhakti without any doubts. That is the whole, I would say, if I have to tell you what should be my one takeaway from chapter 15 is, hopefully you have understood the greatness of Krishna. Hopefully you have understood the, all-encompassing, all-pervading nature of Krishna. And hopefully you have understood that the intellect can only, try to tell us that it is beyond intellect. And we are all temporary kshara. Our goal is to become akshara. And how to become akshara is use all this knowledge now and do the right thing. What is the right thing? Is get some humility and totally surrender and practice Kevala Bhakti without any doubt, because your intellect has already now cleared your doubts. Your intellect has helped you get the knowledge that will clear all your doubts. Now you should not have any doubts. At the end of chapter 15, if you still have doubts, that means you have missed something in the previous chapters, or that means you have not even tried Amanitvam. If both of them come, if you pay attention to all the chapters, all the teachings with humility, then by the end of 15th chapter, you should have absolutely no doubt that, Bhagavan is that Supreme Personality, and I am temporary. I am a very temporary, very insignificant piece. But it is possible for me to become one with that Brahman, and to do that, I need to follow all of these and engage in Ananya Chintan, which is Kevala Bhakti. So if this is clear, then I would say, you have successfully made the most of the Bhagavad Gita's teachings. The spiritual science, it is mysterious. It may sound very mysterious. See, even material science has not completely understood even the material world. So which is called as Prakriti. Even that is not completely understood. For example, even today, if you ask the modern scientists, they will say that, they will try, but they cannot completely predict the weather. But weather is a part of Prakriti, which is still part of material world. And using the most modern science, material science, we cannot even comprehend material world. How can we even dream of comprehending the spiritual world using this material science? So you have to go beyond. That is why Krishna is calling this inner science as Guhyatmamam. Guhyat, this is very important. See, it's extremely important aspect. I want you all to pay some attention here again. Please come back if you are somewhere else in your mind, because this is a very important aspect again, because Krishna has openly said it is Guhyatmamam. What is Guhya? Guhya means confidential. And Tamam is a superlative form. So basically, he's saying most confidential. So Guhya Tamam is most confidential knowledge or most mysterious. See, what we have to understand, if you pay attention and see, Krishna is saying it is confidential. Krishna is not saying it is hidden. These are two different things. Hidden means Gupta. It is not Gupta Gyan. It is Guhya Gyan. What is the difference? The difference is Guhya means the text can be in front of you, but the right interpretation will need guidance. Like Bhagavad Gita today is accessible to everybody. But do you think everybody has the same understanding of Bhagavad Gita? No. That is the Guhya aspect. For example, we just saw in the concluding part of this chapter also, where it is Upanishad. Bhagavad Gita is an Upanishad. But do you think you can just read all the Upanishads, and do you think you can internalize the same that Arjuna was able to internalize in front of Krishna? No, it's not going to happen. That is the Guhya part. I think somewhere in the earlier sessions also I used the same example. I think Rajesh ji may remember, because Rajesh still is in Amazon. I used to be in Amazon a few years ago. And we had an security incident, where some source code was leaked from Amazon, and it became a big deal, and a lot of people were freaking out. But one of our leaders was pretty calm, and I learned a lot from that one response that he gave. He said, I'm not that worried. Anybody can have the source code of Amazon, but not anybody can become Amazon using that source code. Very powerful statement he made. He said, go take my source code, but do you really think you can just become? No, just like that, the text of Bhagavad Gita can be given to everybody, but can you actually get that same knowledge? That needs a guide. Just like Krishna was that personal guide for Arjuna. Just like that, each one of us we need a guide, and that is where we need to approach a guide with pariprashnena pranipatena sevaya, because otherwise this knowledge will not really make sense. That is the whole idea. Why Krishna calls it as the most confidential knowledge. And he says, the other reason why he says it is the most confidential is, once you have understood this knowledge, you can reach the domain, the realm of akshara. Is that not what we all want? I mean, are we not tired of this constant cycle of, I'm born, and then before you realize, I'm old, I'm sick, I'm going to die. I mean, this drama, how many times does the soul need to go through? So Krishna is saying this knowledge will help us, go beyond. So these final verses of the 15th chapter, they're reminding us that liberation involves recognizing that we are not this perishable body. First, recognizing that this body is kshara, temporary, but we are not that. In reality, what are we? We are a spark of the divine, which is akshara. And once we recognize this, then we can reorient our lives towards the Supreme Person. Then our prioritization will change. Then we will learn to prioritize that which is important in the true sense. Preya versus Shreya. Just theory, Preya, Shreya, but how do you actually internalize it, correct? This is how you internalize the all thing. So see, it will take some time, but if you are consistent, it will happen. And I don't want to, take names or put anybody in a spot here, but some of us, we have already started experiencing what we call as these divine synchronicities, and we can feel the grace. We can feel the grace flowing. It's not something great we are doing. It is something great Krishna is doing, because all Krishna wants to see is, do you have the conviction? That's all. He's not asking you to become a Mahatma. He's saying, do you have the conviction? Do you have the humility? And do you have the faith? And then you see what I do. Then leave it to me. And, even in our own satsang, there are at least 2 or 3 people who have started actually, seeing this in their lives. And it's very important. And at least for one person, I can tell you that they have developed super intuition. That sometimes, when they're driving a car, for example, they just stop because they have an intuition that somebody is going to randomly cross, and within a second, it actually happens. Somebody is just zooming past without looking at the stop sign, So I'm not, that should not be a carrot. I'm not saying, you should all expect these things to happen, but I'm saying that is how grace works. Grace will work in, its own way. For one person, it may be intuition. For one person, it may be immunity. For one person, it may be, just peace. That we cannot control and we should not demand. But when any of such things happen, you should know that that is the divine grace in action. It will come in small increments. It may come in, continuous flow, but whatever it is, keep an eye out. And whenever something happens, don't fall into the pitfall of saying, I must have done something right, have the humility there to say that this is divine grace. Then more of that will flow into your life. The problem is, whenever somebody succeeds, immediately they want to write a book on how I succeeded. The point is, we need that humility to understand that there are so many factors which are beyond us, and humility to see that there is so much happening that we cannot control, and we have just been gracefully blessed. That's all. Very, very important. In the concluding verse of this chapter, Shri Krishna says, Etad buddhva buddhiman syat, which is knowing this, one becomes a real buddhiman, truly intelligent person. And he also says, Krita kritya cha bharata. You will become Krita kritya. What is a Krita kritya? A Krita kritya is somebody who is fulfilled all that is to be fulfilled. Or in other words, somebody who has accomplished all that has to be accomplished in the true sense. That is Krita kritya. So Krishna says, once you internalize this knowledge, you will become a true buddhiman and you will become a Krita kritya. I mean, there is nothing else that you need to accomplish. So powerful. And Krishna So if you see the final shloka, Krishna is saying, "Oh Arjuna, I have given you the gist of all the confidential knowledge of the Vedic scriptures. From the description of the nature of this world to the differentiation between matter and spirit, kshara, akshara, finally the realization of the absolute truth about oneself and the supreme divine personality. I assure you that whoever seeks and gains this knowledge will be truly enlightened. Their deeds and endeavors will be definitely fruitful, and they will take them towards their ultimate goal, which is God realization." So Krishna is giving a promise that if you can internalize this knowledge, then he's directly giving a promise. So earlier he gave a promise in 9th chapter. Anybody remembers 9th chapter? What promise? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Rajeshi, we have not heard from you in a long time.
Yogakshemam Vaham.
Excellent. So in the 9th chapter, he said, Yogakshemam Vahamyam, I will carry what you need. But that was still at a, I would say lesser level. Because here he is giving a promise that says, you can attain me. What are our needs? Compared to attaining him, that is inconceivable, incomprehensible, Purushottama, if you can attain him, what else do you need? So here that promise is coming, you see. So beautiful. But the importance, again, I want to keep going back, even if it annoys some of you. Bhagavad Gita is not just Upanishad. Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra. So you have to keep reminding yourself every time that Bhagavad Gita, that is the reason why I ask all of you to be present in the satsang. I ask all of you to be visible, because this is yoga. This is a way of aligning. This is a way of purification. And that is how this knowledge will actually become internalized. Not just reading. You can read 1,000,000 books. You see, that will still be just Upanishad. But if it has to be Yoga Shastra, it has to be practiced. Just like that, whatever Krishna is saying, all the 21 virtues, it has to become a way of life. You just have to follow, and the magic you will see is the whole message here. Yoga Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Yoga Shastra. It is yoga, it is yoga, it is yoga. Okay. Some practical reflections. Let's see if I can cover some practical take-home message. Is what? Again, cultivate humility, unconditional love, and devotion. At least these 3 things have to become second nature to us. And, we can engage, we can be in the world, we just need to be not impacted by the world. So when you are in the world, we all are in the world, we are all in the material world, we have to live. There is no escape. But how we live is in our control. So when we live in the material world, if we can be aware and mindful of the divinity in everything, in everybody, then that is a very transformative way to live. That's the whole message, In fact, one person wrote to me just a couple of weeks ago, and extremely, thankful and grateful and all of that. Of course, it was a very small lesson that person internalized, and that one lesson itself, they wrote to me that it transformed them. And that one lesson was focus on the problem, not on the person. We said that because everything is a play of gunas. So if you can, instead of like I had given this example of, let us say, not just, focus on the problem, but also don't try to dwell like into the past, or don't try to dwell. Just focus on what is the issue and how do you fix it. The beautiful example was, a snake comes and bites you. Okay. So what do you do if a snake bites you, a poisonous snake bites you? The first thing you do is try to figure out how to take care of that poison, right? How to make sure the poison. Do you all agree that that is what you will do? Okay, I think everybody is agreeing. Or are you going to now run behind the snake to find out where the snake came from? What category of snake is it? What is its botanical name? Why did it bite me? I'm such a wonderful person. Why did it have to happen to me? Or let me go and first beat the snake. No, none of that is going to happen. You are going to focus on first, that poison. You want to make sure that you take care of that. You see, just like that, things happen to us. We shouldn't get into this victim mindset. Why it happens to me? I'm such a beautiful person. I'm so wonderful. I've done so much good for this person. I did so much good for who? How does that matter? What matters is what is the issue right now and what can I do to overcome that. So the person wrote to me saying that lesson transformed their life because now they are able to, in the same house which used to feel like hell, now they are able to live in that same house peacefully. And they are actually able to be more dear to people who used to be angry with them all the time because they are seeing a transformation in this person and they want to now learn some things from this person and so on and so forth. As I said, every person will have their own experience, but the key learning is still the same. Like that, there are so many lessons in the Bhagavad Gita. If we can internalize them and try to practice them, you will see the magic. You will see the transformation. It is guaranteed. So my best wishes to all of us, that we all are able to internalize these set of lessons and we are able to progress on our path of spiritual enlightenment. Let our love for God increase and let it provide more joy. And let us never forget that although we may seem like we are separate from God, the reality is we are an inseparable part of God because see, even if you want to use an intellect to internalize this, that is also fine because see, even if you use the intellect, look at the definition of God. The definition of God is omnipresent. One of the definitions of God is omnipresent. That means he has to be within you also, no? If there is no God within you, then God is not omnipresent. See, so how can God be within you and you still be separate from God? That is madness. How is it possible? So that realization has to come. Not just now theory, intellect has given us the theory, but now when you do the chintan of Shri Krishna or Radha, whatever is appealing to you, that realization will come that yes, I am not separate. Like Anandamai Ma beautifully said, "Jahan do hai, wahan dukh hai." Do hai means that realization has not yet come. सच में दो नहीं है, सच में there is only एक. But जब तक that realization doesn't come, it doesn't become an internal reality for us. We always have this sense of separation. That is why we will ask questions like, God, why have you forsaken me? Or what do you mean God has forsaken you? God is not an external entity. God is within you. You are just having an experience. You see, but you are inseparable from God. But that has to become a realization. That's the most important aspect of, being in Ananya Chintan. So may that realization dawn in each one of our hearts. Iti Purushottama Yoga Nama Panchadasodhyayah. Thus ends the 15th chapter, Purushottama Yoga. So Hare Krishna, thank you so much once more for your continued love and support. And we have come a long way. I pray to Krishna that let us at least stay together until we complete 18th chapter and let us all experience the blissful journey. Let us all experience the grace. It will come. If you are open and if you are mindful, it will come. So my blessings and best wishes. With that, I think I can stop talking. If you had any concerns, questions, comments, please go ahead. We can spend another 5 minutes. Yes, Deepaji?
Today, while you were explaining about the spark and the just a thought that came to mind, like the charging part of it, how we charge our phones and every day, like diligently. I mean, it just for my own self, probably I just want to share is like that's the way we by connecting to Krishna, by reciting the Maha Mantra, by attending these sessions is another way of charging our own selves.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, that That's I mean, it is so important. Like, just as we charge our phone every single day, we need to charge ourselves by reciting the Maha Mantra. I mean, that's my takeaway for today.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way of putting it, Deepaji. I think I told
Yeah.
you this earlier also. Another practical thing, I used to try a lot of cardio in the gym, and I'm not seeing any effect. I used to think that I've done it for 3 months and I can still not see any effect. My tummy is still the same big one, and nothing is happening. And my older son, he's a fitness freak, and he very casually told me, like, Dad, uh, don't look at it as I did for so many days, so why nothing has happened. He said cardio is a lifestyle, it's a way of life. You just have to keep doing it. That is just a way of life. It's not something you do and expect something. And he said it casually, but I felt the same way. Like, Deepaji, it's so profound that, it's not like, oh, I did spirituality for 3 days and nothing has happened. It has to be a way of life. It has to be constant, it has to be consistent every day in everything. That is what is required. So yeah, thank you so much. Very, very important. Okay, so I think we can then conclude this session, and then we're going to have the a mini kirtan practice. So whoever is interested can stay. It's completely optional. I will just stop the session for now, stop recording, and then we can talk about the kirtan. So thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. See you all in the next session, where we will have the revision of 15th chapter. We will make it interesting as always, and your participation much appreciated. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji.